Hello, everybody. My name is Sasha Andreev, and welcome to the 2025 Prestige Global Meeting Sources Education Webinar Series. Today, our very special topic is the Partnership Playbook, working with destination organization experts. Now, if this is your first time here, we're very glad to have you. And if you've attended a previous webinar, we're very glad to have you back. Now, we've been covering a variety of topics in this webinar series, everything from personal well-being to cruise ship contracting to networking to better communication skills through improvisation like we did last time. And this is all part of our mission to empower our clients. At Prestige, we have a rich history of offering comprehensive support for event planners, everything from site selection to full event services. We leverage our global network of hospitality resources to benefit our clients. Our commitment to you is integral to our success. And since part of that success is to stay informed and inspired, we've been reaching out to our industry friends to share their expertise on the various aspects that affect your professional and sometimes personal lives. So let's meet one of those friends now. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Emily Scheiderer, Senior Director of Education, Sales, and Services for Destinations International. Emily, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, before I let you go, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit, which I do with every guest. Emily is a hospitality enthusiast with a background that includes both destination marketing organizations and hotel experience. Now, before navigating into the trade association world with Destinations International, Emily spent just under 15 years in the hospitality industry in a variety of roles, everything from medical meetings to hotel sales and marketing to destinations organizations. And Destinations International, where she works now, she works directly with sales and services teams focusing on business event strategy. And Emily, you describe yourself as a data nerd and you love to expand your mind and learn. And when we were talking before, you talked about how you love to see how data meets implementation and how we can learn from what it says to harness it and make more effective events for all. Would you say that's pretty accurate in describing who you are?
I would say that's 100% accurate in describing who I am. I definitely find passion in that space. And with that wonderful introduction you had, I've had the opportunity to get to see that data in motion in a lot of different roles in the industry.
Excellent. Well, I know that you spent almost a decade working at Visit Indy in sales and customer engagement before joining where you are now at Destinations International. You were telling me how your current position was actually created for you, and I'm curious what inspired that transition and how did you find yourself where you are?
Absolutely. So I would say actually the majority of the roles that I've had in this industry were either created for or evolved with my skill set. And that's one of the things that I love so much about the industry that we are in. It creates a space for that progress to take place. At Visit India, I was very fortunate that I started in a sales role there, but I had the opportunity to really integrate into our local community and see the impact that those business events were having. And so we saw a greater opportunity to forge relationships between the two, and it kind of evolved into that. So a great experience for me and wonderful place to see the value of what all of your clients on this call today do.
Excellent. Well, I think we're all pretty excited to hear what you have to say. And before you get started, I just want to make a note to everyone watching. If you have questions during Emily's presentation, there's a Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please use that to write your questions down. And at the end, we will get to as many of them as we can. And also note that this presentation is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the Prestige YouTube channel, so you can reference it later or share it with your friends and colleagues who weren't able to be with us today. So Emily, I'm going to let you go, and I'll see you afterwards to chat a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, hopefully successfully here, and we will go ahead and kick it off. So again, thank you, Sasha. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk a little bit about really one of my all-time favorite topics, destination organizations. And I greatly appreciate the Prestige Global team for providing the opportunity for me to share a little bit today. As Sasha mentioned, I did work in the destination organizations for a long time. And the only thing that I could think of that was better than that was to go work for the trade association that gets to work with all of those organizations. So I am the Senior Director of Education, Sales, and Services with DI, as you will hear me call it, which we are the trade association for those organizations around the world. And my goal today for this conversation is really simple. I really want to just go back to the basics of detailing what a destination organization is and how the event strategists can most effectively partner with these local experts to the benefit of your events, but also to the benefit of the destinations that you're going to be hosting in. So, to kick us off, before we jump into the exciting world of the collaboration between events and the destination organizations, I do want to take a moment just to revisit what these organizations are and why they exist. For some, this may be entirely new information. For others, it might be a valuable refresher, but really gaining a clear understanding of their role and their purpose lays the foundation for a strong and effective partnership with them. And you'll start to really be able to get more into the specifics because you will know not only what success looks like for your event, but also for those destination organizations. So, destination organizations take many forms, especially when we look at the structures internationally. They range from some titles that you've probably more familiar with, like CVBs or convention visitors bureaus, and DMOs or destination marketing organizations, and tourism authorities. But despite those structural differences that come along with those names, they really share one common theme, and that is that they are purpose over profit. At their core, these organizations promote their communities as travel destinations, and they work to boost that public perception and drive that economic growth through tourism. So their success is really measured by the opportunities that they can create within their communities. And understanding this really helps us align with their goals and see how those business events contribute to that broader mission and that impact within the destination. So, destination organizations carry a really significant and long term responsibility as it relates to the development and the promotion of the destinations that they're representing. They oversee the tourism marketing area and the convention sales and services area, and they really work to monitor the overall health and sustainability of their communities. This is obviously very important to those communities, but it's also really important to the events that are coming into the destination. Really simply put, your success in their destination is also their success. Strong attendance and positive delegate experiences not only generate that economic benefit through things like spending and tax revenue and ultimately job creation, but they also enhance community pride and they improve that quality of life and they create lasting impressions and then ultimately encourage repeat and future visits. So when your attendance is high and your delegate experience is a really good one, the organization there locally within the destination has fulfilled its role as an advocate for all. That is why many destination organizations have either individuals or teams that are dedicated to the success of your event. They're structured to really serve as an extension of the incoming planning team so that the event is a success and ultimately those that come to that event are going to want to return to the destination. From a meeting organizer perspective, working with those destination organizations on meetings and events can really be broken down into kind of two parts of the process, which you can see on the screen here. There's what we call the sales side, which is working with them to find the best fit for the event, right? So it's before it's officially selected that destination or that hotel or that venue. And in turn, it's letting them understand your event as well so that they can ensure that it's the best fit reciprocally for the community. Then there's what we kind of call the services side, right? So this is once the group of experts that work with the incoming meetings. This is that group of experts that work with the incoming meetings after they have contracted their venues and their hotels. They work with you throughout the planning process, and they make meaningful local connections and other services that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail here shortly. Both groups, sales and services, are specifically hired and specifically trained to help you throughout the process. Um, every destination is different and every event is different. So these local experts are really put into place to help you navigate maximizing your success within that destination. So the destination organization has the ability to really support your success. And I encourage anyone who is organizing or hosting an event to not only lean into that, but also understand how that success is supported before, during, and after the event. The destination organization really has the understanding of the market nuances. And so what that can help you do is navigate dates and patterns. And that could produce things like financial offers, or finding a more holistic view of what's going on in the destination, so that you know the impacts that that could have on your event. They can objectively walk you through the options and help you find the best fit. They can connect you to the community and to the vendors and the suppliers. And then they are the marketing professionals for the destination. So they have existing assets as well on the marketing side that can support that attendance driving. And again, with that holistic destination perspective, they have a better handle on the full impact of your event, not just the impact within one hotel or one venue. So, to get the most out of the destination organization support, it's really important that you have an understanding of how to integrate with them before, during, and after, and how to really leverage their expertise at each stage to strengthen your event success and your long term partnership with the destination. From a strictly logistical standpoint, there are numerous ways that you can engage with destination organizations throughout the event life cycle. So I promise I'm not going to go into every example on the screen, so no worries. But I did want to provide at least some context and examples of services that are fairly common across destinations, which you can see kind of broken down into the pre, during, and after event buckets here. In that pre-event phase, destination organizations can really support you with logistical essentials. So things like dates and venue guidance, or sourcing local partners, or even providing resources for marketing and sustainability practices. During the event, many offer hands-on support with welcoming attendees, all the way over to supporting local CSR opportunities and managing, in the unfortunate event if you need it, crisis situation and risk mitigation efforts. And in the post-event phase, they provide really valuable insights, and in some cases data that can help inform your future events and engagement opportunities. So, though we don't have time again to dive into every logistical detail, we do want to make sure that we're covering some of the evolving trends. And I highly recommend checking out some of these resources that we have created at DI just to help you know logistically how to integrate with those destination organizations as well. So, as I mentioned, as important as those foundational and those logistical items are to the success of your event, um, to really maximize your success with the destination organizations, there has to be a deeper understanding of how to put that local expertise into action and collaborate with those destination organizations on a much deeper level. Um, Meeting that ever evolving need of events and of attendees is something that through that collaborative approach can really be supported. So looking at these as partnerships, not as transactional relationships, is the foundation that you have to start with to really get the best out of what they have to offer you. Often, what we are seeing in the market is that the factors that are driving destination selection are really mirrored in the factors that are driving the decision to attend your events on the delegates' part. So, really taking the time to look at the evolution of those factors and where the destination organizations can support you can really be a game changer for a lot of event strategists in maximizing that success. So, on the left side of the screen here, we're going to take a look at those destination selection factors. What you're seeing on the left side here are common factors that we've always seen, right? Dates, rates, and space, cost, airlift, capacities, service levels, and of course, for many organizations, executive and board input. But even in these kind of basic or common factors that we've always seen, we're starting to see new trends emerging in terms of some of the considerations in these spaces, and they're starting to even look a little bit different. Preferred dates are now becoming more sensitive to not only belief-based dates, but also the importance of patterns that will support attendees in prioritizing their work-life balance. Airlift. It's not exclusively about the ease of access or getting to the destination anymore. It's also about the impact on climate and carbon offsets, and that's a factor for many attendees. Cost. It's not just about logistics anymore of the event, right? The destination and the perceptions of that destination could impact attendance numbers. And we all know attendance numbers can impact hotel attrition, and then that ultimately can impact the bottom line. But what's really interesting in the evolution of these factors right now is in addition to all of those common factors that we've all known for years that are in some cases taking some new shape, we're also seeing new detailed considerations around other things. We're seeing socio-political factors, especially post-pandemic. We're seeing a lot of complex contracting clauses. We're seeing climate and weather impacts on destinations and concerns around responsible tourism from delegates. We're seeing perceived safety, and we're also seeing misinformation about safety. We're seeing accessibility and inclusion not being checkboxes, and we're seeing all of these things along with the additional attendee individual sentiments that's impacting their decision to attend. So when we look at all of those factors that are influencing destination selection and event attendance, it's really clear that both destinations and event needs are evolving rapidly. So I have some examples of that evolution on the screen that you can see here. I'm not going to go through these one by one, but what we can say for sure, right, is that often the only constant is change. And so there's a growing need for event strategists to really truly collaborate with those local experts to deepen their understanding of the community's unique assets, and how these unique assets can contribute to an event success. Those assets are also changing consistently, and the connections to those cannot be made through things like online research. They have to be made through humans that know the local players and the local shifts that are coming. And those are the individuals that work within the destination organizations. So, by aligning with those organizations, you can really stay attuned to these shifts locally within the destinations and ensure your event resonates on a micro and macro level. And depending on how far out your event books, that can be an even bigger factor because what a destination may look like now may not be exactly the same in 5 years, 10 years, or depending on how far out your event is. So, what are some of the ways we have a lot of foundation there, right? But what are some of the ways that you can really think about adding the destination organization to your team and looking at how you can meet those evolving needs and create that true impact, and specifically leveraging the assets that they have to support you in the convening, connecting, and creating of meaningful events and experiences for your attendees and delegates? So there are many, but again, for the sake of time, we are going to really look at three important areas that I would say are really driving event success, and also have a lot of interesting trends that are taking place, and look at how leveraging kind of that destination's bird's eye view of these topics within the community can really directly support you in your initiatives and your events. So we're going to start with risk mitigation, which is a really big topic, I know. Um, we're seeing a lot of things happening in this space, as you can imagine, but the number one trend here is not going to be a surprise to anyone, and that's that everyone is just more risk adverse right now. Cost savings across the board due to varying factors, could be budget cuts, could be increasing costs in doing business, could be a lot of things, but they're making planners, destinations, hotels, everyone assess things on a deeper level. And so for hotels and destination, this can come in the form of evaluating incentives differently, right? Or for planners, this could come in the form of looking at contracts or concessions or event elements differently to make sure that they're taking into consideration those cost savings. Economic uncertainties can also impact decision making for attendees and their organizations. So, this could look like shifts in group and leisure markets, and that impacts rates. We can see shifts in the types of hotels that they're using, and those things can impact ultimately their decision to attend timelines or whether they stay within or outside of the block. And of course, all of this is leading to higher contracting awareness and a desire for decreased liability on all sides. Uh, the use of technology is also really impacting how quickly and how accurately we can assess that ROI. And a lot of these financial factors are paired with things like data availability factors, which is bringing a lot of planners who maybe used to historically source, 2 cities to start sourcing 20 cities now. So we're seeing a lot of evolution in this space. And with all of the factors of risk mitigation and those potential impacts on finances or safety or whatever that looks like in play, there's more of a need than ever to really have a deep rooted relationship with a local expert. Local partnerships can play a really big role now more than ever with local talent and local thought leaders and local suppliers and other entities that can, in many cases, help you offset costs. It can offset costs of travel for speakers or shipping or other factors. So, with delegates, considering these factors as well, there's really a bigger need to showcase that value of the event in the destination and drive that attendance. And the destination organization is the marketing organization that can help you craft that message without any additional financial costs. You're going to hear me say this more than once, but it's definitely a factor. Destination organizations, all of their services offered are free. So, with the shifts in the markets, the availability can look different. And of course, leaning on that destination organization to understand those need periods and those pattern shifts and find those options with no cost associated, you can best support your event and risk mitigation in all of those forms. It's really expanded outside the walls of a single property. And in many cases, those organizations can provide that essential support and that local insight to help you navigate those complexities. So, another really important area I would say right now, and a very high interest area right now, is that of collaboration in the space of intellectual capital, which I mentioned a little bit on the cost savings side. But attendees now, especially in the world of technology advancements and all of that, they have a deeper understanding of what they can get virtually and what they cannot get virtually. And events have had to adapt to that newfound knowledge, and intellectual capital is one of the biggest spaces is supporting them in evolving that value proposition. So what we're seeing here is really evolving needs like everything else. And that is that success looks different. So that means that the collaboration with the destination organization also has to look different. Now, you see, I have these little pictures on here. I know this is going to come to a shock to maybe some of our younger viewers that are out there today. But once upon a time, people like myself used a landline phone to pick up and call people and ask them for business, a phone with a cord and everything. So if you're in that category and you remember that, don't feel bad. You're in good company. I did it too. In fact, my son, who's in second grade recently, with all sincerity, asked me if I used a quill to write when I was in school. And that felt good, as you can imagine. But even though I did not use a quill, the reality is he's not wrong in terms of the mediums that we use to communicate have changed. And we are now in our smartphone era. And we are communicating to a variety of preferences. And just as those mediums have evolved, so is the content that we're discussing with them at our events. It's no longer just about maps and brochures and tchotchkes. It's now about being able to really provide a more comprehensive understanding and a connection to the local assets that attendees can't get anywhere else in the world. So, working with the destination organization to really understand the local capital and to tap into that capital creates a really new value proposition for you and for your events. You are bridging a local experience and an intellectual capital experience, and that could only be had at your event in that destination. And that factor can drive attendance. And in some cases, when destinations and events really get it right, it can also promote things like earlier registration that can help you with the logistical planning. So tapping into that local intellectual capital creates competitive advantage for your event. And frankly, it can support your bottom line with those local partnerships, right? We mentioned elimination of costs of speaker travel and other factors that play into that. There can be cost savings, but there can also be experiential boosts that can drive revenue on the other side. So this is a really important area. And we're seeing destination organizations and events working a lot more collaboratively in this space to enhance the events. And then lastly, because I know we want to keep it to time today, I do want to look at one final consideration, and that is really the aspect of stewardship and really having a deeper collaboration with those destination organizations in this space. So, what we're seeing on the evolving needs as it relates to this is that today's event attendee or delegate, they come with a deeper understanding of the complexity of safe and healthy spaces. And they're really reviewing the impacts on both natural and on created environments as it relates to events. So they also represent organizations, right, that have varying levels of requirements when it comes to things like climate impacts. And all of this is coming together and impacting their perception of travel and ultimately their decisions on where they're going to place that travel. All the while, event strategists and destinations are balancing those perceptions and those ethical actions and those climate impacts and inclusion in all of these conversations with budgets. So, working together to really assess those impacts of the event on the attendee, but also on that local community, is really a rising tide that's kind of raising all boats and something that we're seeing more event strategists integrating with their destination organizations on to raise those boats, right? So, what we see is that many destinations and many events have adopted the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or their SDGs, as a roadmap of areas of focus that will help them create positive impact in their events. And with the destination organizations having a deep understanding of kind of where these goals fit within their local communities, and having examples of other events maybe that have been successful in the past, you can really collaborate with them to find, dates that work for all audiences, patterns that respect work-life balance, but also that respect the local community, the local engagement, and the communications that support all of those needs. So there is not a silver bullet when it comes to creating the perfectly inclusive and environmentally friendly event. But there are steps that can be taken with the destination organization, and many of which can really be supported by just having conversations and talking through some key questions with those organizations and your contacts there. And those conversations often come to the adjusting of kind of the strategies, both of the event and the local strategy. I may have some examples on the screen here, but really, just kind of to summarize it, working through with the destination organization, what makes your attendees feel safe and what makes them feel they belong, and adjusting things like routes and space and other factors. Understanding your communication plan before, during, and after the event, and where those destination assets can fit in to support that messaging. Considering things like branding and signage is another area that we're seeing collaboration and looking at it as more than just wayfinding. Leaning into the destination to really understand what has been successful in the past, and knowing what concessions and requirements are in your contractual agreements, and working with those local experts to really walk through that, especially during the site visit structure, really helps you keep the different attendee and local perspectives in mind. And then a couple other questions to keep in mind when you're having those conversations. We can also really work together to ensure that um, it's enriching the authentic local experiences and ensuring that, you're approaching everything from an accessibility lens, making ADA requirements a minimum, not the bar, and looking at things like incorporating local talent, especially in underrepresented groups in the community or in maybe the industry that you represent. And then, of course, truly ensuring that you're considering the impacts of the spaces being created and making sure that all of the thought leaders and speakers are educated, not only on your attendees and how to speak to them, but also on local customs and how to best fit within the destination. Okay, so I know I have covered a lot in a very short time, and I talk fast and drink a lot of coffee. So, from a kind of basic logistical collaboration to deeper partnerships. Before we wrapped up, I did just want to take a quick minute to emphasize not just why the destination organizations should be seen as that extension of your planning team and a key kind of best practice space in working for them or with them. I'm sorry, but also just to go through a few common questions that we get and some final tips for making the most of that partnership. So I'm just going to run through these really quickly, and then we will open it up for any questions. So a couple frequently asked questions that we get. Planners, we hear often have a lot of relationships with different players, right? Like hotels and venues and others. And some may be unsure of who to involve and when. And so, from a destination organization perspective, our answer is really, really simple. It is and, not or. Destination organizations, they bring really unique assets and insights, and those complement, not replace, the role of other players. Many of you who are watching today have, prestige associates that already have strong relationships with these organizations, which is already starting off with an advantage because that means that you're starting not from scratch, but building on those existing connections. So expanding that network really only benefits. And since destination services are free, there's really no downside to including them in that sourcing strategy. Another question that we often get is when should I include the destination organization? This is actually one of the most, I would say, common mistakes that we see happen. It is really crucial to include the destination organization from the very start. And there's a couple of reasons why. First, it supports you in a much more informed decision making because they can advise you on date selection and have a better understanding of everything that's going on in the city during your dates of interest. Helping to avoid conflicts with maybe major citywide events or maybe other groups that could impact availability or pricing or experience. Even logistical things like road closures and restaurant availability can um, really have an impact on your attendees experience, and so they can help you work through those need periods, patterns, potential incentives, and options. The second reason that you want to include them upfront is because it will give you full access to services. So as nonprofit organizations, which I mentioned on the front end of the call, they offer that free support. But many destination organizations have accountability metrics that are tied to their funding. So they need to be engaged early in the process to be able to allocate their resources effectively. And if they are included from the beginning, you gain access to more services and dedicated support. If you reach out to them after you have contracted, they certainly want to talk to you and they want to build a relationship. But a lot of times that can limit their ability to add the full kind of suite of services that are available because those are tied to metrics that they have. It's really easy to include them through sourcing systems. And of course, your prestige contact can always reach out to them directly with their relationships with RFP and if it needs, but including them earlier than later is very beneficial. Another really common misconception that we run into is people ask what size of events destination organizations can help with. And I think often what we see is that many people think that they can only help with big citywide events that require convention center space and multiple hotels. And though they can absolutely assist with those, most of the organizations have teams that are deployed to different size events. And that's inclusive of those small meetings and those self contained pieces of business in one hotel. So on average, I tell people just to keep in mind if your event needs roughly 10 overnight guest rooms or more, there's probably a sales or service team with a staff member that is an expert in your event size. Um, if it's even smaller than that, they probably have a series of online tools and assets that can help you through their sites and can support you in those needs as well. Okay, so when sourcing your events, what information should you share with the destination organizations? Destination organizations need to understand the logistics, certainly. They need to know your dates, your space, your hotel needs, your food and beverage, attendance, those kinds of things. But if you really want to maximize the success, especially in those spaces of intellectual capital, I really encourage you to kind of think of three other things to include. Include your bigger picture goals. Explain how this event fits into your organization and your broader vision. Help them connect the dots so they can connect you with local thought leaders and offsite experiences and unique things that will support your full business event strategy. Consider sharing your meetings portfolio. If this is part of a larger event lineup, there may be opportunities for incentives or insights from past events that have been in the destination that they can help support you either financially or in the execution of the event. And share that event history. Hotels and destinations, they're going to ask for this anyway. It's a key factor that everyone uses in evaluation. So sharing it up front really allows them to advocate for you and for your event within their hotel community as well. And lastly, I've shared a lot with you, but one final question. With all of that information, how could you really summarize the value proposition of working with a destination organization? And I would say, first and foremost, it's free. This will only bring additional value and you have the option to utilize it, but it will bring no additional costs. They're there to support you through the sourcing and the sales, helping you navigate those hotel and venue options, and helping you identify incentives and other spaces. They're there to walk you through site visits and planning and help coordinate those things for you and bring in the right players and booking those appointments and ensuring that this event fits into that picture so you can get a firsthand experience in the destination. They work with you on that pre and on site support. They work with you on those local connections and really work with you to meet those key needs and understand those post event impacts. So there's a lot of ways that they can support you. And the destination organization, my final kind of thought I will leave you with is that they are there to be an advocate for all. And as the stewards of their destination, when you work with them to put that knowledge of the community and its welcoming environment and sustainable practices into action, it really produces results for you and for your stakeholders, and then also for the local community, and that's going to increase your delegate experience, but also the perception of the value of your event to that destination. So I love them. I'm passionate about them. I heavily encourage you, if you have not worked with them in the past, work with your prestige counterparts and associates to make sure that you are leveraging the assets through the destination organizations and uplifting your events. So I know I am up on time, Sasha, so I am going to stop there and turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much for that. That was so much information. And if I'm correct, you did say that that deck will be available to anybody who needs it. They should just reach out to their Prestige contact to get it. While you were talking, Emily, we did have a couple questions come in, and now is the great time for everyone in attendance. If you do have a question, you can type it either into the chat if that's easier, or use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. But Renee Coker asks, how has the destination organization companies expanded their net and skills, their local partners, etc., to ensure planners that their events are safe in their hands without planners having to hire local DMC services?
I think that's a really great and really valid question. So what we saw post pandemic and in all candidness is that we had major shifts in the workforce. And so immediately following the pandemic, we certainly were in an understaffed position in a lot of the entities within hospitality, not specific to anyone. But what we saw after that is as they started kind of building those staff back up, we had a lot of people that were entering those roles that were new to them, or maybe they transitioned from a different space in the hospitality community. And so there was a whole new learning curve that was put into place. So destination organizations, everyone is different in what they're looking at from the educational perspective is getting really, I would say, creative in those spaces. Many of them, the way that they are funded has a certain level of membership base within that, which includes those local hospitality entities. And for a lot of these destination organizations, they have either training programs or they are working to build training programs and to really get solidified within their destination for consistency and service. So it's definitely something that's still a work in progress across the world as we've seen all of those workforce shifts. But there is a high focus to it in the destinations, and they're working through that. In the event that you do feel that you still need those DMCs or you still need to bring in PCOs or others to support in that, they certainly have those local connections and can help you get affiliated with those as well. But great question, Julie. It's definitely a relevant topic.
Excellent. Another question in the chat: how do destinations value my meeting, and what is too small for their involvement?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So, business evaluation for the destinations, it looks very different than business evaluation looks for like an individual hotel property, which is what you're describing in terms of how they value that. For the destinations, they are looking at what is the best fit to layer into the destination first and foremost. So, um, when they're looking at that, they depending on the market type, often have a consistent pattern of business with holes to fill, and they're looking for things to layer effectively, not only for the business aspect of the economy locally, but also to make sure that your events have the best experience. Because the worst thing that could happen is they put you in the wrong place, you come and you hate it, and you don't want to return. So they are looking at that holistic viewpoint when they're evaluating that business, but they also have to have that deep understanding of their local hotel partners and what they evaluate as good business within that space as well. So they're really the central point for a lot of those conversations. And I think to set yourself up for the most success in those, talk to them early and talk to them about any flexibility that you have within moving those date patterns or moving those dates and trying to find the best fit for all. And also help them understand your business event strategy. Because another piece that they're looking at is how does this layer into maybe the industries that are strong within our community, and how does this layer into kind of that bigger picture and supporting how we're building our community, but also how we can maximize success for this event. So they're a lot more macro in how they're kind of evaluating that business. And in terms of size for involvement, there is no such thing as too small. They do have teams that are dedicated, to all different size events. But again, it kind of depends on the destination organization. Some of them are in smaller destinations and they have smaller staff dedicated. So if it is a 5-person meeting, they may have assets built out that are like, regularly needed assets that they can provide to you. Whereas if it starts being, I would say, kind of 10 on peak or more, they probably have a staff member that would start working through the sourcing process.
Got it. So as long as you have, your timeline in advance, size doesn't matter if you have, the conversation and have flexibility on your end to kind of find the right spot for yourself. Am I hearing that correctly?
Absolutely. They are not there to, I can assure you, they have no desire to turn away business. They are just trying to find the best possible fit for their community and the best possible fit for you. And so having those conversations of what that can look like and finding the best place for it is really what they're hoping to do.
Right. Here's another question. Can DMOs help with marketing my meeting and introduce me to local companies for sponsorships?
They absolutely can help with the marketing aspect of your meeting. So that is what they do best. They market the destination. They have assets that are built out often to help you highlight the unique assets of that destination. In terms of local companies and sponsorships, it would be kind of very destination specific. It's a question that's worth asking upfront to know what that looks like for them. Again, because they are structured differently from funding mechanism, whether it's membership based or not, that can play a role. But they typically have either the ability to provide you an understanding of the local um, industries that align, maybe that would be potential opportunities for you to reach out to source for that sponsorship or exhibition if you have that aspect to your event, or they have some kind of program in place for that. So it's worth asking the question, but I would say it just kind of depends on the destination.
Got it. And this is something that we kind of talked about a little bit in our pulling back the curtain pre-production meeting that we do, where we kind of just chat through everything that's going to be presented. Sort of how, if I'm curious if AI is impacting interaction with those destination organizations, and whether it's sort of enhancing or diminishing those organizations.
Yeah, that is, thank you for bringing that back up because that is such an important part of everyone's world right now.
It's like
AI,
the elephant in the room when it comes to
you know,
literally everything.
it is. Let's address the elephant. It is absolutely in everyone's life right now, right? AI. And I think the thing about AI is that it's in a lot of ways changing how a lot of us are doing business. But typically speaking, there's a couple buckets it's mostly touching on from the destination organization perspective. And some of that can be the administrative lift aspect, and some of that can be garnering data and ROI through things that we have in that space. But what we're actually seeing happen in the market for the destinations is the stronger the use of AI is getting in events, the higher the understanding of their value is becoming. Because I can use AI to pull a lot of local lists and help me come up with itineraries and things of that nature. But what I can't use AI for is local relationships. And so these destination experts, they know the people in their communities. They know the nuances in their communities that maybe can't be found through a web search of any kind. They know that even if it says this much square footage and on paper it looks right, there's these other factors that could take away from the experience based on your attendees' needs. They are the personal connection aspect. And so what we're seeing is the use of AI is going up high, and along with that rise is the understanding of the value of the local connection that a person has to have.
That's actually such a relief to hear, because in the end, we're not quite replaceable. At
We're
least
not.
not yet. Ugh, hopefully never.
Absolutely not. It's great to have our AI assistants, but we still definitely need the human connection piece.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I know that, like you said, your deck will be shareable with folks if they want it. And if folks want to learn more about what Emily does at Destinations International, just contact your Prestige account manager. Emily, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me, and thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Well, if you have enjoyed this webinar, we have more coming up. So on April 10th, we will be talking cultural self-awareness as a tool for effective change with Jesse Ross of Jesse Ross LLC. It's certainly something that is on our mind. So join us on April 10th. And if you want to see our full webinar lineup, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen right now. You can see everything that's been planned. There are still slots being filled. So if you've got ideas, if you've got questions, concerns, complaints, please reach out to your Prestige account manager and they'll pass it along to us. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to be with you, and I will see you all on April 10th. Bye, everybody.